Okay. The different types of audits. HITRUST, I guess about a little over 2 years ago, came out with 2 additional audits. It used to be the R2 was the big deal. That's all they ever had. So now we have the E1 and the I1. The E1 is basically, it's just a small routine hygiene type assessment. It's 44 controls, when in reality it covers probably, if you break it out the way with all these sub-elements in there, it's probably closer to about 280 controls. And what I mean by that is, and we'll talk more detail later, but if you're looking at a control that says organization must implement antivirus on all endpoints. That's your SOC 2 control, that's your ISO control, you see that out there. HITRUST comes back and says, oh yeah, by the way, you still got to have it on every endpoint, but I want to make sure data definition files are updated every 30 days. You can't bypass the scans. Scans must be run every 12 hours or on change, and then there's all these other things. So every control has a subset of controls that are part of it. So when we talk about the number of controls with an E1, it's 44 primary controls with a whole bunch of subs in it. Still a heavy lift, but again, you're thinking about it, if I'm going to do 44 controls, they better be 44 really good controls. And if I'm going to stand on that, they better cover my organization pretty well, and these do. The I1, it's kind of in a mid-level. It's 182 controls. It's not as much of a heavy lift with as the R2 is, but it's a little bit more intense. With the E1 and the I1, we're only looking at your implementation. You don't have to go through the whole policy and procedure development process. And again, I'll stand here and correct myself, but some of the controls require policy and procedure. The very first control in your E1 and your I1 says, does the organization have an ISMP in place? Well, that's a policy. So you got to make sure that, yeah, the implementation of it is you have to have it, and I'm validating that you actually have a information security management program documented, but that's a policy that you have to document, and probably some associated procedures with it. So you just gotta take it with a grain of salt that when they're talking about I'm only looking at implementation, we're not scoring you on that, but you still have some follow-up documentation that you will still meet this. You get more detail, like I said, incident response, BCDR plans, ultimately their policies to start with, and then turn into procedures. You're going to have some level of that covered for these other 2. Then you have your R2, which is the big, that's the full one. It's based off of the scoping that your assessor does with you, based off your organization size, what you're doing, the environments, all that kind of stuff. And those factors I mentioned, this can be anywhere from, say, low 200s, 220-ish controls up to we just did several that were over 1,400 controls. And again, it really depends on your level of risk, who you're working with, what these factors are, and some of the other things that are added into it.